introduction, what did we have? Well, there was Ansible inventory. We were on the cloud. We had service to manage, but it was cloud. We didn't care about things like which switch port it was connected to, the MAC address, or which rack unit it was in, or anything like that. So Ansible worked out great for us. And then we raised some money, and we decided to go out and buy some servers to build stuff. So what came next was, next, please, sorry. Yeah. We decided, yeah, let's buy some servers. So we needed some place to store information about the servers. Great. So we had a service, we had an application we were using to do customer support, to do billing, to do orders, and all of that stuff. And I was familiar with it. I'd used it before, so I decided, let's just throw this data in there. So we did, and we kept going. Then we decided, or the world decided, let's move on. Let's build Terraform. Terraform started eating the world, so now we started leveraging Terraform, and we had state cards. So now we got what? 3 sources of truth. We've got Ansible, oops, back one. We have Ansible. We have our legacy DCIM, IPAM, which it wasn't really built for that, but it could do the function anyway, so we put it in there. And sometimes it's just in the spreadsheet. We have some GTP communities that I really didn't want to figure out the time to do in our legacy IPAM, so spreadsheet, here we come. Then, of course, there are some things you just need to write down in Confluence. And sometimes you end up with DNS entries as the source of truth. That shouldn't be the case, but that's what we're up to. So, looking at this very source of data that we had, decided, okay, let's do something better, because this is not going to scale. If we really want our automation journey to continue and to be rock solid as much as we want it to be. And there's a little bit of, we always want things to be perfect. We know it's not going to be perfect, but we try as much as we can to make it better. So we continued, and so next, next please. So we decided, all right, let's look at what's out there and how we can accomplish this without using our minds. So we looked at some of the existing stuff, and we honed in on NetBox. We decided, let's just all go in on NetBox. So what did that journey look like? Well, in 2019, roughly 4 years after I'd been there, and the team had grown, it wasn't just me and one other network engineer doing DevOps stuff with the switches and the routers. We also now had a cloud operations team that had like 4 or 5 people, and we wanted them to be comfortable interacting with the network and making changes. One, we didn't want to be working up all the time. We had the people in their time zones who could handle this, so let's just make it easier. So 2019, we all sat down, had a serious conversation, and following some of the advice, similar to what Felix mentioned, we had to essentially get management buy-in. Not because our management team didn't get it, but when you start up and you're building all the time, there's always customer features, product things that need to get out there, and we had to fit this work in somehow. So we were intentional about what we wanted to do when we decided, let's move into NetBox. We weren't going to import everything into NetBox. We made a conscious decision, this is what's important right now, we're going to do this, and then we'll follow on later. So in February of 2020, we used Jira, so we had a huge epic and a bunch of tickets under it saying, okay, here's what we gotta do. And so, next please. We worked through that. It's like every other work. Some of it was fun, some of it challenging, some of it tedious, but we went through it. And I looked at Jira, and that one epic, we marked it as done in November of 2021. So roughly, it took us about 2 years to get to this state. And what does done look like? So if you click next, the first version of this meant that we stood up our own internal NetBox instance. The great thing is it's open source. There's a ton of documentation out there, so it was easy for us to do this. So we just spun up an instance and started experimenting. And we tied it to our existing SSO so that it would be easy and we didn't have to worry about creating users for people so that they can experiment and try things out. Everyone can just use their email, log in, do the thing they want to do, and figure it out. So now that we have an instance stood up, comes the next problem. Actually getting data in there. How do we do that? We decided to import only a subset of the data, not everything. And we decided, you know what? We have all of these servers that we need to put in there. But having someone sit there and creating devices in NetDevOps, that's terrible. We're not going to do that. So instead, we had someone who wrote a Python script to take a bunch of CSVs from the vendors that we're ordering these servers from. They already have all of the information on the servers they're shipping. They know the MAC address, they know the disk serial number, they have all of that stuff. They just give it to us in CSV. We asked and they give it. So then we just use Python, script that, and we build our devices into NetDevOps. So now what we can do is when we need to build a machine, because the data is already in NetDevOps, we can have our provisioner just query NetDevOps for the information it needs, and then it actually builds it. It will kick off the PXC process, download the right image on there, and update NetDevOps when it's done with whatever new information that comes out the OS itself. So that's what it looks like in our case. Next, please. So here's a high-level view of what our provisioning process usually looks like. And what we did was essentially these two machine definitions, path definitions right there. We essentially just put NetDevOps on top of that. So click next for me, please. So our human is still the same. They want to build a machine, but now they don't have to update a file that says here are the details of the machine, because that information is already in NetDevOps. We can leverage NetDevOps for that. And on we go. So that's one aspect of what done looks like for us. Now, the next thing we do is, and my slides seem to be a little bit out of order, sorry about that, but while we bought some servers and deployed them into our various facilities all over the world, we are still a cloud, we still use cloud. So we still have things from AWS or DigitalOcean or whoever we were using at the time. And to keep that up to date, what we decided to do was, okay, we can't, for our bare metal, we've already solved the problem of creating devices, but what about for our cloud? Ansible is no longer the thing because we have NetDevOps now for bare metal. We're consolidating everything. So let's pull in this data from our providers. So we wrote another script, and I think Chris earlier mentioned how back in the 90s, he had an army of programmers maintaining 10,000 scripts. We're not up to that number yet, but we wrote another Python script that's going to scrape all the APIs from our providers, put in the information, and put it in NetDevOps. So that way, when we provision a machine, we know 5 minutes later, less than an hour later, it's there, it's in NetDevOps. Everyone has information, all the information they need to know about it. And when we decommission something, we don't have to worry about stale assets hanging in our inventory, because our Python script that's communicating with our providers and scripting their APIs knows that that machine no longer exists, or at least it doesn't belong to us anymore. We deleted it. So then it's removed from NetDevOps, and we can move on and know that that our perimeter is actually in sync, and it's what's under our control. So this is also so that's part of what that means for us. The next fun part of this is we're the NS company, and we run an Anycast network, and one of the things we do is we have our servers actually peer with our routers and announce their prefixes directly, and traffic just comes right through to them. So when we do this, we need to establish a BGP session with our routers, but we don't really want to sit there every time kind of copying and pasting things around. So what we've done, since the information about the server is already in NetDevOps, we decided let's add a custom field to NetBox. And when someone has provisioned a server and we know it's ready, it's passed all of the tests it needs, that it's ready to take on traffic, we add a flag to NetBox that says it's ready. And so now we can run an Ansible playbook that will automatically set up the sessions for us. Instead of someone doing it, you just kick off Ansible and 5 minutes later you have 10 new servers speaking BGP ready to take on traffic. So that's one of the things that we've also managed to do with this. Next, please. So it looks something like this. This was before we knew about the BGP plugin, which we've since found out about. So at some point we'll move to that, but for now this serves our purposes and we're okay with it. It's automation, it's a journey. This is the beginning, we're not done yet, and like Felix I think said, it's never really gonna be done. It's a mindset. We're going to keep going with it. Next please. So, other things we've managed to do, this is one of those other things where we built a thing before we knew there was something else out there. And that's okay. It's okay to do things twice. We have an internal, what we call peering API server. Essentially, that's what it predates, or we didn't know about peering manager back then, so we sort of built our own internal peering manager. So that way we can just go in a web page, we click, we find the peer we want to peer with, we check it, and then Ansible can run a playbook that will set up the sessions for us. Same thing with both. We do this with external peers, and we also do it with anything else. We haven't really gotten there yet with our upstream providers, so we're just using it with peers, but this is what it looks like for us. All it is our peering API server knows to talk to NetBox. And from NetBox, it can get information about the IX that that particular device is connected to. And it can use the templates that we've already put in Ansible. So now it can pull the information, it knows our IP, it knows the device type, so it knows what the configuration should look like. And it gets the previous IP information and can build a session. And all it is an Ansible play that leverages all of those pieces. And we don't have to, again, copy and paste or have a separate database for peering information. Next, please. So here's a quick view of what that looks like. So the top half of this is a snippet of this peering manager that we have, where we can display information about the device the exchange is connected to. And then the bottom is where we can essentially just go on a web page, and when a peer reaches out, or when we reach out to a peer, and everyone agrees, okay, we do want a peer, then we just click on the buttons, and then someone runs an Ansible playbook, and it's set up. Next, please. So this is essentially what that looks like for us. The next part, which is another aspect of the journey we started, and it's actually interesting that Chris from Project Calico was here because what we did, we were using Calico Felix for a while. We still are in some places, but our workflow is changing in such a way that it doesn't really work well with Calico Felix anymore. That we need to build our own. We need to revamp the way we build our firewalls. So what we decided to do is, let's create a NetBox, get all of the information about all of the devices under our control. And once we have them, we generate IP tables, IP sets that we then just throw into GitHub. And our devices, they just pull that information down and update their rule sets. I forget, I think it was Chris again this morning who mentioned, all of these servers that we've turned into routers, they already have all of this information. They already have all of these things built in. IP tables is on every Linux kernel since forever. So IP sets are a nicer abstraction on top of the old style IP tables, IP input stuff. So there's no reason for us not to leverage this. So this is how we are, again, leveraging this source of truth to make our lives easier, to automate more stuff. And it's not sexy and fancy, but it moves the needle. It improves our security posture. It decreases the amount of manual work our team has to do. And it lets us develop faster. We can iterate faster. And developer velocity, something that I really never really thought that much about when I first started, but I realized it had been in the back of my mind. I just didn't have the words to put it, but developer velocity, that's what this is. That's what we've gotten from having a single source of truth. One update, one place, propagates everywhere, and we can experiment and move things along quickly. Next, please. So this is just a quick, this is for me testing where I'm creating a fake V6 Anycast IP set that a server can just pull and update its rules automatically on whatever regular basis we set up. Next. So before NetDevOps, we had 7 sources of truth. We had a solution that we could have used, but we chose not to. One, cost was a factor. It had an API that was part SOAP, part REST, and something else. I don't even know how to describe it. And it cost money, and no one was excited about working with it. So we made the decision to go all in on NetDevOps, which has a great API that we're leveraging, and we got a lot out of it. But now comes the next phase, next part of the journey. It's not done yet. So what does next look like for us? Well, first bullet point, if you can click next, please. So first of all, we're gonna have to do another audit. As much as I would love to say we were very super diligent about making sure everything was perfect, that's really not quite the case. There's some stuff in there that no longer serves the purpose that it had when we put it in there. We now have to go back and kind of call some of this stuff and maybe input some new data that we didn't at the time because we wanted to focus on that first epic of getting to this state where all of our devices were in that box and we can use them for something. So once we go through this audit, the next thing we're going to do, next please, is we're going to, and this one's going to be fun, because with NetBox you can have tags for a lot of stuff. And this is a problem we kind of learned the hard way with Ansible, where we essentially have something like more than 500 groups in our inventory. I don't think we want to repeat that again, so we're going to model out what we want from our tags and what purpose they serve, and figure out how to enforce that. And next please. Yeah, we're going to import a lot of stuff, some more stuff, after we do this audit. And one of the goals is to essentially remove Ansible completely from being an inventory source. As much as we like Ansible, and it's worked wonders for us, we're going to continue using it. Source of truth is not really its bread and butter. So before we import more stuff from Ansible into NetBox, we want to figure out the tags and also the Ansible groups and see if we can collapse that into some manageable number to keep followers, to keep safe. Next, please. So, like I alluded to earlier, the BGP plugin, which we found out about, we're going to pay some close attention to it, see how we can use it. And yeah, again, our BGP communities, I think that's probably the first key thing we'll pick is to get that into Ansible. Get that into NetBox out of the spreadsheet that we have right now. Next. And a couple of things we haven't done, which will be great, and I think Felix has already gotten there with his network in modeling a lot more stuff, but our cross connects, we don't really have a model for those. I know NetBox supports this, but those aren't things we're taking advantage of. Circuits, patch panels, those aren't things we're taking advantage of, but those are things we want to take advantage of. But again, this isn't just going to be from the ocean to everything, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. we're going to sit down again, have a serious conversation, and decide which parts to tackle, and then dedicate some resources to that, and go forward with it. Next, please. And yeah, host bars for our network devices, it worked well. I think it's time that they were shown the door and we start leveraging NetDevOps service. Next. And yeah, I think that's really, there may be one more bullet, but I'm not sure. Next, please. Yeah, there are more custom fields that we probably want. One of the things we do at NS1 is we have this concept of dedicated networks, and that has extra data about it, about our customers that we want in NetDevOps. And I think we're starting to develop some of those custom fields so we can pull that data easily and be able to do something with it, either reporting or observability, to integrate that with our Prometheus stack, for instance, and automatically spin up whatever specific dashboards per customer. If we can pull that information from either tags or custom fields in NetDevOps, we want to explore those and go forward with it. And I think that's probably my last bullet point over here. Next, please. Okay. So one thing I do want to mention is this is a team effort. This wasn't just done by 2 network engineers or 4 people from operations. We had our project management office involved. As good as we are as engineers, writing down tickets and following the checklist, we don't always do that perfectly. And our PMO team, that's what they're there for. They're here to support us and make sure that these projects are a success. So if you do have those resources in your organization, I do highly recommend that you leverage them to make sure that whatever you're tackling, that they help you stay honest and stay on track and not get distracted, because there's always a lot to do. But in this journey, you have to stake your claim, pursue it, and then move on to the next milestone. So that's pretty much been our journey with parts of our automation at NS1 with NetDevOps. Hopefully next year or some other time, someone else from NS1 will stand over here and tell you that we did some of these bullet points in that next steps journey. And I'm happy to discuss this anytime with anyone. Please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is here. And I'm not sure I'm doing any time, but
You're doing very good on time. First, I see one question. Is this, wait, did you pay for this?
No, I haven't. I actually don't have a question, just an observation. So what NJ just took you through is 8 years of effort, right? So it's easy to reduce it down to some bullets, but it felt really messy. You know, as we went through it, I think you mentioned this earlier, NJ, like, you know, when you first joined NS1, what we talked about is you wanted to start automating, right? And we're still on that journey. And I think Felix talked about this a little, and so did Chris and Mark. It is a journey, right? You're not done. You don't start it and be done in a year. It becomes what your team does. I think you know, you've illustrated it really well. Only other thing I want to say is this is all NJ's fault. He adopted NetDevOps, and it was so impactful to us in our business. So we built a business around it and spun it out, and now here we go all on. So thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Esther, I see you.
I just have a quick question for you. So do you have the intended state of NetDevOps? Like, do you have the network devices in their intended state, and you have devices that are in their operational state? Are they both in the same instance of NetDevOps, or do you have 2 NetDevOps? One's for the operational state, one for the intended state, especially in the transition space. So you're going from CLI days to automation.
Yeah, so we only have one instance But one thing I do want to add is we have two separate instances, and we treat both as production. One is, we have two environments at NS1. We have production, and then we have staging. And each environment has its own NetDevOps instance. So in staging, we'll experiment more quickly and try new plugins there. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's one NetDevOps for everything, both the operational state and the intended state.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks, MJ. Any more? Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. So I was going to ask you, you mentioned about some custom fields. I think you said you've already done some custom fields and planning to do more. How much or at all do you have to concern yourself with building something that becomes no longer supportable because it changes with NetDevOps? Or is that even a concern, or if it is a concern, how do you do it?
It's not a huge concern right now, but I do get the point. And the beauty of it is we have some room to experiment. And like Felix said, it's okay to do things twice. Hopefully the second time around it won't take as long and we won't devote as many resources to it. And the second time around that we have to do it, hopefully NetDevOps will be in a better state, or a different state that works better for our workflows, that maybe we won't even need to do it at all. We just stop, we just remove all of these custom fields we had to begin with.
Any more questions? Yeah, Felix.
I'm really sorry. I know the question wasn't for me, but I also wanted to throw in an answer to the question before. I think one good way of looking at this is that if something that you're doing custom gets supported by or gets supplanted by something the product automatically does, it's worth doing it a second time, right? Because then you don't have to support it anymore.
Wisdom bombs all over the place. Anybody else? Going. All right, huge round of applause for NJ.